Hey everyone, welcome to episode 9 of the Hendriks Experience Podcast. Now, truth be told, tonight our guest couldn't make it, and I was just going to run a solo podcast.
Yeah.
And then I started talking to the guy behind the camera, Andrew, the cameraman.
Here we are.
And here we are. Now he's flipped himself around.
Not used to being on this side.
No, this is a completely different side for you.
Mm-hmm.
Different
worlds.
The camera is staring at you. You're not looking behind the lens anymore.
We're now the talent, but we'll see how.
We'll see how this rolls. So I was chatting with Andrew, and he actually I thought, this is an interesting story. And I started asking you about your last name. I didn't know your last name. I knew your first name, of course, Andrew, but didn't know your last name. And your last name being?
Yeah, my last name's Abfal.
Abfal.
Which is funny because in Germany, on all the waste baskets is my last name. A little bit of a waste, but they did drop an L.
Now, your name is on those baskets because Abfal is?
Apparently it's trash or waste, depending on how you type it into Google
It's the word
Translate.
in German for waste. Mm-hmm. I was hoping your family owned the waste disposal company. Not quite
As far as I know, we weren't garbage men.
No.
But why we ended up being waste? That would be a deeper family history to go look into. We'll have to check Ancestry.com for that.
To me, that's a kind of a rough name to carry in your life.
I've kind of liked it. I've grown accustomed to it. And I'm just like,
right.
it's fun now. It's fun,
good. That's good. And that's your dad's side of the family.
Yep, dad's side.
And your mom's side of the family.
Yep, that's more Rogalski and Andres. Very big in Niagara on the lake.
Yes.
Yep, we've got a street and then
a bunch
of different farms and...
See, you're
everyone
famous,
knows everyone. Everyone's related.
You're kind of famous
somehow.
for two different big ways then.
Oh, yeah.
Infamous. I'd go to the wine side, lean more towards that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's fantastic. So your family's then, your dad's from Germany.
Yep.
And your parents moved here like in the 50s?
So my great-grandparents were the first people to move here on my mom's side. And then my dad's side, the earliest was actually in the 1800s.
1800s?
Yeah. So some of the original farms.
Yeah, we're going back a lot farther than when most families moved into the area.
Yeah.
So you're saying your parents then were born and raised?
Yeah. Family's been here for quite a few generations now.
So you go back that far. Actually, I just sold a home that I owned, and it was built in 1867 downtown St. Catharines on Queen Street by Montebello Park. Oh. So we're going back to that time frame.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Now, if your family had bought in real estate back then, the price would be, they'd probably still be complaining that it was not affordable.
Yeah, there were a few family farms that actually, they were on the market a couple of years ago. Like just prior to COVID, we were looking at them. And my dad was considering, do we sell off what we own now and combine and try and get the old family farm back?
Right.
Didn't come up to fruition. Couldn't convince my aunt, but
yeah. So those values have changed dramatically, if only. And that's what people say a lot about real estate. If only I had bought back then. If only I had bought back then.
Yeah.
And even yourself, we started having a little conversation about real estate, and I was asking you how old you were. You're kind enough to share with me. You're how old?
So I'm 27.
27.
So I've been looking for the last few years into getting a house. And just prior to COVID, I was about to pull the trigger on it. There was a nice house, about $450,000, just in Thorold. I was going to also rent out some rooms to students just to help balance out the mortgage.
Right. Payments
would have been about $900 to $1,100 a month with a $50,000 down.
So that would seem very, very affordable for most people.
Amazing, opportunity for that. But it being COVID, and I was working in the live events industry at the time, and obviously they ended up shutting everything down. So job prospects, I couldn't work for that period of time. So I was just on EI for a little bit.
Right.
So I wasn't sure I could take on a mortgage successfully.
Right.
At that point.
Qualify even at that time if you had been laid off. Right.
So there was a lot of risk there in that situation that I wasn't willing to get into. And like you were saying, hindsight 2020, should have gone into it.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda, didn't.
The boom, baby.
The boom came. And you know what? in real estate, we're so often working with the people that are taking that leap and are able to qualify and purchase the home. And honestly, we don't hear a lot of the stories about how people that came close and weren't able to. So that's a really tough challenge and situation.
Yeah.
And it's really real life. You're a perfect example. Someone, you would have been around 24 at the time or so, 24 years old.
At the time,
and you had the down payment.
Had the down payment.
Right?
Yes.
You had a solid down. You said you had 50.
Yeah, and that was the
50K
hardest
down?
point to get now. Like the payments now, I could still be able to make it work and it be a little tighter, but still very doable.
So you had double the minimum down payment.
Yeah.
So that's solid, very solid. 50K, good on you. You just saved that up over time? Is that how you came about? Or someone just wrote you a check in the family? Or
my family,
way back
we never
from someone in the
money.
1800s, they put some money aside for you? Or
we
didn't quite go
never
that way?
spent money in my family. Like I started working at 14. Didn't spend a dime of that money until I went to college, and then paid for my school with that and had a little bit left over. Thankfully, blessed, no student debt.
So 14 years old, what were you doing at 14 years old?
I actually ended up working for a grocery store at Sobeys. Not me being 14, I had no idea I wasn't allowed to technically work there until I was 16.
Well, how did
And
they not
didn't-
ask you your age?
They didn't look. They didn't look. My manager didn't look. I had a birthday. Like I was still working there at the time. Just like birthday. It's like, oh, how old are you? I'm like 16. He's like, what?
What happened the previous 2 years?
Yeah, like what's going on? Who knows, man?
Yeah.
Bernard.
So you
Shout
started 14,
Yeah.
and then at 16, and then what had transpired after the grocery
Yep.
business?
So I went out to college.
What college you go to?
I went to Fanshawe College for
Fanshawe, London?
Yep,
Correct.
London, music industry arts and audio post production, which
What
is
you're
kind of how I got into
what you're doing now.
this situation.
Right.
And then in between, then summer jobs. Every summer, I worked for the LCBO, good paying government contract job. Highly recommended if anybody's looking.
Awesome.
But
So, but most people today say, I can't save up a down payment. But you're a perfect example of, you didn't have these glorious, really high paying jobs. You just worked your butt off and
worked
saved money.
because I was living at home, still living at home. So my overhead, like I didn't have a lot of bills to pay.
Fair enough.
So mind you, I never went and I'm not a coffee drinker, not a smoker. Like I didn't have
You're
a lot
saving ching, ching, ching right
yeah,
there.
there was a little tougher now with the higher house prices. But in general, like it's definitely doable. It's mainly just getting approved for that lump sum now. It's
Qualifying.
tough to qualify for it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, so I have to go for a cosigner for
Okay.
sure.
Well, again, this is real life.
Yeah.
And this is how it goes these days. You've got, or did you spend the 50K or did you
Bought a car.
bought a car?
Which
And
was
you know
a
what?
terrible idea.
Terrible.
Depreciating asset.
Let everybody out there know.
Depreciating asset.
Whatever you do, you work so hard to save that money.
Yeah.
And then you went and bought a car.
Yeah. Quarter life crisis.
Quarter life crisis.
Little quarter life crisis.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So you paid
Yeah.
cash for this car? You got a loan for the car?
Cash.
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 And how much in that has that vehicle gone up in value since then?
It's honestly stayed roughly the exact same.
Roughly, well,
Because
wow.
the I got it used.
Right.
And then the used car values went up. So as
Right.
I'm adding the kilometers, it's
Okay. So you bought it like
pre-boom.
Pre-boom
but
of
It was
resale
during
vehicles.
COVID kind of deal. So like the used vehicles were going up,
Right.
but they weren't at their peak yet.
Now, but you did need a vehicle. Did you have a
I
different
did
vehicle
need
before?
a vehicle. I did need a vehicle.
Right.
My car started biting the dust, and it was costing me a couple of $1,000 a year to keep it running.
Right.
So it was time for a new vehicle. Probably shouldn't have gone as pretty.
Yeah, in hindsight, what can people learn from your experience in buying that car? What would you have done differently today? What you know now, what would you have done then?
I would have for sure gone for a lower value car, but
Okay.
still
You mean like
reliable.
10 like how much
but
did you spend on this car?
I spent 40.
40.
40 out
Okay.
of the 50.
Ouch.
So
And
slow climb since then.
and how much would you have spent on a vehicle? Look, in hindsight.
In hindsight, a good quality vehicle at that time probably would have been about 25.
About 25.
Say like a 20, say like 17 Honda Civic at that point was going to be about 25 grand.
Okay. So
And that'll
spend
last you
25.
for years.
Yeah, have a great quality car.
Yeah.
What did you buy?
Well, I got the nicer Civic.
The nicer
I got the
nicer.
Acura.
Oh, the Acura.
Yeah, like a little, still same Civic chassis, but
It still drives, like, gets you from point A to point B,
100%.
right? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Me personally, I like vehicles. I drive a Jeep, and I like that vehicle. But, it still gets you from point A to point B. And if you can do that reliably and you're looking to do some other things with money in your life, then maybe consider, I guess what you're saying to people out there is consider doing it a little bit
go
differently.
more reliable, more like err on the side of caution in terms of obviously depreciating assets. At that point in time, I wasn't well versed in money. So I wasn't too big on like understanding the value of certain things and say like even just interest rates in general and seeing like where I should say like invest my money, save my money, what I should spend my money on, what I shouldn't spend my money on.
And I'm guessing in post-production school when you went to college,
Yeah.
they didn't really teach you any of
No.
this, right?
No.
And that's probably one of the biggest challenges in our society. They don't teach these subjects about financial saving and money management.
There wasn't a lot of money management or saving at all.
I think
But
maybe you should have a conversation with our guys, our business partners at the Hendriks Business Center.
100%.
And speak there with Mike in insurance and Kevin in financial planning. They're right on site.
Yeah.
They've been here in interviews and you're on the other side of the camera.
Yeah.
So we need to get you guys connected.
There we are.
And learn a lot because there is so much to learn from those people that, are trained in that, right?
Oh, 100%.
And I think a lot of people your age, if their parents weren't in that same realm of thought, then they don't maybe pass it along. They've had their own challenges.
100%.
Right?
A lot of people that I know and like my peers at school and stuff, they graduated with a lot of student debt. And obviously they're trying to save money and stuff like that, but some of them are maxing out their credit cards and then they're just getting into more debt, not knowing what should I actually do with my money.
Right. What loan? They're not thinking about what credit card has a higher interest rate, how to,
Because a lot of people have given up on that whole saving for a house situation around my kind of age group.
That's
so they've resigned themselves to renting.
So unfortunate. They've resigned themselves to renting. Somehow, some way, we got to create and inspire that back in them. And I think a lot of it is from just education and learning that it is possible for themselves and their lives that they can own a home someday.
Yeah.
Right?
It's definitely possible. It's going to be hard depending on obviously your income, and some people may have to move to lower cost of living areas and stuff like that.
Now today, comparatively to what you're doing before, I'm guessing you have somewhat of a higher income today than what you did.
I do have somewhat of a higher income.
At what was the first place you worked at?
First place I worked at was Sobeys.
Yeah, Sobeys.
That was $9.60 an hour, I believe.
$9.60 an hour.
Yeah.
So yes, homes were cheaper then, but your wages were much lower then as well.
That was student wage. I believe the minimum was $10.25.
$10.25.
Or it might have been.
It's
been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah, in the ballpark anyhow, right? So now have a higher income level. And if Wes out there could just maybe crank it up a little bit for you, it might make things a little bit easier on you.
Maybe.
But
maybe.
yes.
Love my job.
Maybe help
Love
you
my
out.
job. Wouldn't do anything else.
Don't go letting him
Wouldn't
go or
do
anything
else.
Yeah. And you do love what you do, right?
I do. 100%.
And, owning is, even though I'm a realtor, owning isn't everything in your life. And I don't think you really should make it everything in your life. We're just so ingrained in this is what we do, right? So we're always talking about home ownership and so on. But it's not a bad thing if you don't own a home. It's not like...
No, because there's opportunities in so many different places,
you
right?
should still feel good and positive about your life and enjoy your life. And, you're making... you have goals towards home ownership still, correct? And living at home, that's another great advantage. You don't have that high rent that you normally be paying. So do you find that difference that you would be paying in rent, are you socking that away each month?
Yes.
You are. You didn't go and buy another brand new car or anything crazy like that.
I'm actually
There's no new Tesla
paying
sitting
rent.
outside here, right?
Yeah. No Teslas coming out there.
Students, man, it's tough out there.
It is
students,
tough.
They're going to school. They're trying to better themselves for their future. and then they come out and they're saddled with this debt.
Yeah.
You see that a lot. You have a lot of friends in that same situation.
100%. And it makes me feel so blessed that I'm in my situation. My parents are also willing to help co-sign and
Yes,
like to
co-sign.
do that. So
Thank
if
you.
people don't have that, then it's very, very
Very
tough.
difficult. Unfortunately, not every person is going to be able to own real estate in their lifetime. It's a tough thing to even say.
Yeah.
It is, it's just a fact of life. And it's not all about Niagara region. It's more expensive in some areas. Yes, if you want to find a more affordable area, you could go to Calgary, although Calgary is really rising in
Yeah,
prices
it's getting up
lately.
there now.
The rents are going up, the prices are going up because they were lower, and it comes to supply and demand. And there's been an infusion of immigration, as we have here in Ontario,
Yep.
but also a lot of people from Ontario are moving out there. A lot of
And
people from
out east as well.
And yes, exactly, and out east to New Brunswick. Another thing that's possible that isn't really talked about, you can go into a joint ownership with, between your friends.
Yes.
They could
Yeah,
own that
people
property
have
together.
talked about that.
Have you guys discussed that?
We have.
Is that a
Like, that's-
conversation that takes place?
Oftentimes, yes. Like if we see a property, obviously the in-law suite thing is huge right now because of multi-generational families, but also from friends getting together. My next door neighbors, for a little bit until it turned into an Airbnb, was 2 floors of college roommates that once they finished their school, they all were staying here. They got jobs here and they got a house together.
Awesome.
One by one, they slowly started moving out and buying each other's equity in the home.
But they got in the door. They got into the door
Yeah.
of home ownership. Desirability in buying a home will take you so far, but unfortunately not through the finish line. So you need that help from parents, grandparents. You got to dig deep. You got to save your money.
Don't buy a car.
Don't blow it all on a car. And it is possible. So
Hopefully.
keep
We'll see it.
keep the faith out there.
Talk to me in 2 years.
Hopefully.
It's my
Fantastic.
timeline.
I'll be here for you.
Yeah.
Cheers, man.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. See you next time.